Alright, hi there guys, time for another one. So yeah, I'm gonna do, it might be a short video, I don't know, I'll try my luck and we'll see what we get. So yeah, just a video discussing a little bit of the details about the connection between poor jaw development and tinnitus. So yeah, basically there's a field called orthotropics out there, which is like orthodontics, but a very different fundamental approach. Basically, their theory is that the jaws in modern humans, the top one, the maxilla, and the lower one, the mandible, they are set too far back in the face compared to our ancestors. And if you look at the pictures, it's fucking obvious. We're deformed. I think one of the doctors, John Mew, to paraphrase him, or was it Dr. John Flo? One of them, anyway. One of the people that, go along with this theory, they put it very well. If your hand was deformed in the same way that our faces are now compared to our immediate ancestors, there would be a fucking problem. There would be a big problem. People would really take notice. But because it's the face, and it's easy to write off any of these kinds of changes, just, well, that's just your face, that's what you look like, that's your genetics, that's what you're born like, you're stuck like that. The research I'm seeing, the resources I'm looking at, and all that kind of thing, and my own experience applying these theories, says it's blatantly not fucking true that our faces are just our faces. They absolutely respond to forces, internal and external factors in the environment. They completely change over the course of our lives. Faces will tend to get longer over a lifetime for a few reasons. But yeah, so without diving too far into that, basically, I completely believe these theories on the growth of our faces being poor in the modern environment. Because you look at the tribes, more indigenous populations and that, where they don't have these factors going on in the modern environment that interrupt, they affect the growth process of the face in a very poor way. To the point where the maxilla gets set back, this pulls the mandible back and down, the jaws get too far back in the face, you end up with flat, much like myself. You can just about make out the bags under the eyes because the maxilla's set back. The gap teeth, all that sort of stuff. These are all symptoms of what they call craniofacial dystrophy, where basically my jaws aren't forward enough. Everyone has this to some degree in the modern environment. Very few people are unaffected by it. The ones that are supermodels, basically. And even then, you will see issues. There is much debate about the degree to which the population is affected by this stuff, even amongst people that agree on these theories. But the reality is, we're all affected by it to some degree. And I believe there's a very strong connection with it, with no research, just based on the fact that the way having the jaws back in the face affects everything. And I'll get into that in a bit. There's one person I've talked to on a Facebook page called the Craniofacial Action Group, which I'm on there. Yeah, they say they treat patients with tinnitus and things like that through this approach. And I will get to that in a sec. I'll just sum up what I was saying. So yeah, basically, everyone has jaws that are too far back in the face. And I will cover that with videos more on, facial growth and that sort of thing. I think I have a playlist with it with like one video on it. I've got to get around doing some more. But yeah, so again, with my own experience with it, my teeth have gotten closer together, basically. These gaps at the front, they have gotten smaller since I started applying the information I've picked up. My face has changed very subtly. It's a slow process. No two ways about it. It's a slow, bloody process. It's slow even in children, when you apply this stuff. So it's not going to be any quicker in an adult. There's no quick fix with it. But yeah, I'm definitely seeing my teeth changing slowly over the months. Very slowly. But the fact that I can achieve that by myself at home by applying some posture changes with the tongue, while playing video games and that sort of thing, and most dentists, most conventional, traditional dentists or orthodontists couldn't do that, without surgery or all that sort of stuff. That's a big deal. And again, I'm not fussed about the cosmetics of this stuff, I'm fussed about the health benefits. And that's why I do not care at all for traditional dentistry and their approach to this area of the body, because they're not aware of it, basically. They don't know. Or they don't seem to know that the face, it's a living, breathing part of your body, you know what I mean? Just, it responds to the world around you. It doesn't just grow, you hit 20 or 16 or 20, whatever age it is they argue, and stop. It constantly remodels throughout our lives. And yeah, so basically you get these issues when things get bad enough with the face, you know, all sorts of things. So I'm just going to basically read out the bit that this guy quoted when the topic of the connection to tinnitus come up. You know, because I basically said my views on it. Well, yeah, poor jaw growth will predispose you to having tinnitus. It won't cause it. It won't, you know, be a direct cause. Because there's a billion things. And like I say, everyone has an issue with facial growth to some degree in the modern environment based on these theories. And it looks completely solid to me. Yet not everyone has tinnitus. You know, not everyone with terrible facial growth has tinnitus by any stretch. So as usual, I think there's a lot of different factors going on. There's a hell of a lot of stuff. I would still completely recommend focusing on the emotional stuff. Absolutely. That's a thing that will have a massive amount of benefit on the whole body. And this facial stuff will as well in a similar way. But it's fucking hard to do. That's the basic thing. Even with emotions being hard to deal with, you know, to address, to undo the freeze response, to undo emotional stressful patterns and things like that, it's still easier than dealing with the physical stuff going on here. Like, basically, to get the face to grow right, you need to get the tongue up properly into the palate. It's meant to be on the roof of the mouth. And with the top jawbone set back so far, that means your airway's small. So to get the back of the tongue up at the back of the mouth, you have to shove the tongue in the airway to some degree. And then wait over a long period of time to expand. You know, to get the airway to open up. That's bloody hard to do. I've been at it for 2 years and I'm still, well, nearly 2 years, I'm still practicing that technique. It's a constant ongoing process. So for anyone looking at this and making the connection to their tinnitus, I would say don't worry about it unless you have other health issues that are caused by this. By all means, look into orthotropics, look into poor oral posture, things like myofunctional therapy. Look into the health, you know, the negative effects it has on our health. See if that's a big deal to you in your life. And if it is, consider looking into this stuff and trying to apply it. But other than that, when we're talking specifically about tinnitus, yeah, poor jaw growth definitely predisposes us to getting tinnitus. It is not a causative factor, I don't think, but it lowers the threshold for what it will take to trigger your tinnitus, and I'll go into why. And I stand by what I've said in the past about stuff. Just if you ask a, you know, dentist about this stuff, they'll say it's the teeth, or in this case the jaws. You know, it's all on the jaws. It's that's responsible. If you ask a psychotherapist, you know, a therapist, whatever you want to call it, they'll tell you it's your emotions. If you ask a chiropractor, they'll say it's your spine. You know, if you ask, you know, Julian Cohen-Hill, he'll say it's the nervous system, you know, that kind of thing, emotional stuff to focus on. They're all right. They're all completely right. But, like I say, to me, dealing with this is about dealing with the specific set of factors in your individual case that cause your tinnitus. So, by all means, cover as many of them as you can. But in every single case, the emotional stuff is going to be a massive deal. And it's the easiest overall, it's the biggest bang for the buck to address that, basically, I think. To get the nervous system rebalanced, to bring the neuron activity down, and to reduce the ringing, you know. As well as if you can get your emotions under control with it and you know, you can deal with that, that's its own reward. You know, whether your tinnitus comes down much or not. And it will, I stress that it will if you manage to successfully apply all of that stuff. So yeah, I'm getting sidetracked. Basically, it's not going to be that long. But yeah, so in response to the thing I said to him, I can't remember the name as well, and I asked if I could quote him, and he said, yeah, so if you're watching, thank you very much, I appreciate it. You know, it's wonderful to be having these kinds of conversations, especially with what you've written. You know, so yeah. I said, my basic theory on tinnitus is that poor jaw growth predisposes us to it, but that it's other factors that will trigger it, so to speak. It's other things, you know, the overall accumulation of whatever stuff. So yeah, you can say poor jaw growth is a big issue if it's a big issue in your case, you know, but I do stress, focus on healing the nervous system by dealing with emotional stress, because everyone is too stressed emotionally these days as well. It's the nature of the environment we're in, as best as I can perceive it. So, in response to what I said about it, the guy, I believe he's a professional, you know, based on what he said, yeah, so what he said is the predisposition of tinnitus from poor jaw growth is irritation of, not sure how it's pronounced, the trigeminal, whatever, you know, trigeminal. I don't know how it's pronounced, and I don't want to embarrass myself trying too hard. So yeah, type that in and look it up. That and the vagal nerves. Oh god, I hope it's not that. I'm not a doctor. I'm absolutely not a doctor. I'm only good at the bits I've read up specifically on. So yeah, just basically the nerves dealing with the jaw, and with the top of the spine, the atlas joint. The atlas is the C1. It's the first vertebrae. When the jaws are poorly formed, that gets knocked the hell out of alignment. And it's one of the main reasons people have got such poor posture these days. And obviously computer use and all that affects it as well, but that's the big one. But yeah, so carrying on. Loud noises and infections that one would usually recover nicely from, they suddenly become the trigger to make it all explode. The predisposition causes an overactivation, in other words, but thus the overactivity is not idiopathic, which that's a response to me saying basically I didn't have an infection, I didn't have loud noise exposure, my tinnitus come on magically out of nowhere one day. It's not magic, I agree with the guy completely, it's not idiopathic, but without the stress in my life going on to get me to that point where these little things going on in life that I would overlook, without that, whatever the trigger was for my tinnitus, whatever it ended up being, was a benign factor. It wasn't an issue. So yeah, that was my basic point there. Yeah, so again, on with the quote. The solution is to heal these nerves by removing the noxious input. I've dealt with many similar cases, ranging from tinnitus to hyperacusis and even hearing loss, and they do get better and often even cure once the nerve entrapment issues have been resolved. The reason stress exacerbates these issues is because the patients will clench their jaws and muscles more when they stress. If they can stop doing that and remove the causes for the nervous entrapments, which could be many, numerous causes, they will, big capitals, get better. So yeah, overall, that's a very positive thing. He's absolutely said, there is a cause for the tinnitus and stuff like that. Whether it seems to come on out of nowhere or whatever, there is some sort of cause. If you address that, the people will get better, and he seems to have real world experience dealing with that. This isn't just an empty quote, So yeah, that is a brilliant thing. The bits where I disagree, I agree with the fundamental point completely, but the bits where I disagree is the focus on the jaws there, which, like I say, if you ask, a therapist, they'll say it's emotions, blah, blah, blah. The focus is there because that's what they deal with. And yeah, it is a factor. It's a big factor. If you can improve the function of your jaws, whatever, you can improve the structure of it and all that stuff to stop inflaming the nerves, to stop aggravating them, to do all that stuff, I've no doubt your tinnitus will improve, It's one of the reasons I started looking into this stuff when I began to piece together how big an impact this has on our overall health. So yeah, if you can look into that stuff and apply it, great, do so. But the issue here, as far as I'm concerned, is that for most people, there's a lot more going on. They're not going to cure their tinnitus just by looking at their jaws. And frankly, it's a massive task to correct that. It's completely possible, and I assume if you get help from a professional to work on it, it's even easier to do. But yeah, in regards to tinnitus, this is a factor to be aware of. The basic point there was that when the face is grown badly, or whatever it is, when this is affected, tinnitus becomes easier to develop, So yeah, it's a factor to bear in mind. It's something I definitely think you should be aware of with the tinnitus, but I stress it once again, not everyone with poor, even terrible jaw positioning, TMD, all that kind of thing, not everyone will get tinnitus like that. It's not a direct connection, much in the same way that deafness is not a direct, you're going to get tinnitus now, too bad. There's a lot of factors involved. I think the important thing for us as a community is just to be aware of all of them and the things we can do about them all. So again, to anyone watching and trying to make progress with their tinnitus, the biggest bang for the buck, as far as I'm concerned, is the emotional and mental stress in your life. Be it external or internal, if you can address that, odds are good you really will improve your tinnitus. You know, no doubt in my mind whatsoever. But yeah, if you can take care of this physical stuff as well, and there's a long list of things I could go into in the ways that poor facial form will affect your body. I say that main one, just the fact that it throws the top of the spine out, that will activate the sympathetic nervous system chronically, on a day-to-day basis, all the time, because your body has to adapt for that being out of whack, you know, the function's impaired to whatever degree. But yeah, just, it's a big factor. But once more, I'm certain I've said it a million times now, focus on the emotional stuff, look into this stuff, have a quick look, see if there's any other symptoms or whatever you have. If it strikes you as being that big a deal, it might be worth looking into. So yeah, that's about it with that. I thought it was just really nice to get a quote from a professional that said, yeah, they've dealt with things like that, tinnitus, hyperacusis, hearing loss, and addressing this jaw stuff can improve, you know, those issues, definitely. So yeah, that's basically it. Just, I'd always assumed there's a connection. Here is some evidence from someone that works in that field with this stuff, confirming that. It's nice to know some of the details. So yeah, I hope that's interesting to you guys. I hope it's not too rambly, and I hope you get something out of it that you can apply, or just some peace of mind from it. So yeah, that's about it. I'll catch you guys in the next video. I hope you take care, and I'll see you then. Bye.